Well, 2019's upon us, and that means a whole nother year for movies. And I started this year out with the movie Glass. So it's no secret now that Glass is the third of a trilogy by M. Night Shyamalan, starting out with Unbreakable, 2016's Split, and now, of course, we have Glass. It's kind of common knowledge now, but when it first started, it was a huge deal because Unbreakable was its own thing, and then Split comes out and introduces the idea of this whole universe, which got a lot of people, myself included, really excited for this movie. So, did it deliver? Unfortunately, I don't think it did. So, a little background. Unbreakable is one of my personal favorite superhero movies. I think it's just a really well done drama about a Superman type hero being thrusted into our world without the actual knowledge that he's Superman. That concept in and of itself is great. Flash forward several years later, you have Split, which what I thought was a pretty enjoyable, if not kind of off the wall crazy thing of a movie that just was a lot of fun and it worked as its own thing. However, when you introduce the idea that those two movies are linked and that the main character from Unbreakable is going to go head to head with James McAvoy's character from Split, it opens up a world of possibilities. And Glass, unfortunately, did that in the most boring way possible. Most of this movie takes place in one location, and man, it's slow. I'm fine with slow burn movies, but you have so many possibilities. And it's not to say this movie's all bad. I think I actually would have preferred it to be all bad, because at least then it would have just dropped my expectations immediately. But the thing is, there's so much going for this movie. A lot of the pieces are in place, but there's just not enough gears grinding to make the whole thing work. There's too many loose ends and too many things that aren't making this as good as it could have been. And that's what really hurts, because there is a lot of potential and there's moments of greatness in this movie. I think all the performances are great. Bruce Willis, I thought, did a fine job. Samuel Jackson's great. James McAvoy, I think, is the standout here because his character is so unique and he's balancing all these different personalities and he does a great job with it. Anya Taylor-Joy I enjoyed. She did a nice job. But unfortunately, that's just not enough to hold up this movie. So when this movie starts off, it actually has a lot of promise. The pacing's really strong, and it's bouncing back between all these characters pretty seamlessly. The problem is, of course, I don't think this is a spoiler. They showed it in the trailer, but these three main players, Jackson, Willis, and James McAvoy's character, they all come into one specific environment, and then the movie just kind of is at a standstill. And I think the main problem with this is they try to have a intelligent psychological aspect to this movie where there's this psychologist doctor-esque character. I'm not sure exactly what she is, but she comes into this environment and she basically tries to convince all these main characters that they're not actually superheroes and that it's a construct they've invented in their mind. This on its own could be an interesting idea. The problem is, if you've seen Unbreakable or if you've seen Split or even the first 15 minutes of this movie, you understand that they are superheroes and they spend way too much time on that idea that maybe they aren't, because you already know the answer. It's no. Of course they are. We've seen them at their full potential. And I just found it so bizarre that so much of the movie focuses on that idea and it comes off as just pointless. So that, I think, was a fatal flaw to this movie. It really, really cut down on the pacing, and the movie just kind of feels like it's at a standstill. I went with a group of buddies, and the consensus amongst us seems to be that it's just the same scene being played over and over and over again, and that takes up a huge chunk of the movie. It's 2 hours, but by the time we're finally done with all this pointless psychology stuff, you've already shot an hour down, pretty much, if not more. And so then something in the story changes, which brought me back in. I'm like, okay, there was, a little bit of a slump there in the middle, but I'm on board again. and then the movie kind of just peters out and ends. I won't really spoil anything, but I will say by the end of it, I was pretty underwhelmed. The movie remains pretty small scale, which I found to be bizarre, which I would have been fine with, but they're presenting these grand ideas of these two superhumans going head to head, and they don't really do much with it. Another thing I found that to be really, really upsetting with this movie was the action scenes were handled really poorly. It's kind of the same fight over and over again from the beginning all the way up to the end. If you guys remember a couple years back, there's the infamous Floyd Mayweather fight where they're basically just hugging it out the whole time. That's every action scene in this movie. It's just Bruce Willis gets close up to James McAvoy, and they just like kind of choke each other out, and the camera is it's essentially just this. Like the camera's doing that the whole time while they're fighting. Just extreme close-ups, camera shaking, and it's really awkward and really clunky, and it just doesn't work. The worst part of it is, I think, is that there was a lot of promise. The trailers for this I thought looked good, but yeah, I don't know. I know people have kind of been on the fence about this one, saying, oh yeah, it's okay, or like, no, it's awful. And I guess just go see it for yourself. At the end of the day, I do think it is cool, at least how Shyamalan managed to pull this connected universe off, because in a world where we're seeing so many cinematic universes, or at least attempted ones, it was nice to see one of those actually work well. They actually built up to it. This was a universe 18 years in the making. I don't think from Unbreakable there was ever any plans to build something bigger, but it did look like there was going to be something great, and so that's why I think this movie burned me so bad, was because it looked like it was going to fall into place. As far as follow-ups are concerned, I have no idea if Shyamalan plans on continuing this series or universe. But like I said, go see it for yourself. I personally wasn't a fan, but you'll never know until you check it out on your own, because this movie really was divisive. A lot of people seem to be on one end or the other. The audience reaction was kind of split, I guess. But yeah, no, go check it out. It's not really a glowing review, but I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it, but who knows? Like I said, though, 2019 is a whole new year for movies, so hopefully, we get some good ones coming in and out. But yeah, as always, until next time, guys, stay tuned.